Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's video is a bit different to normal, and it's one I've been promising for around a month. I'm going to be filming on camera for the whole video, and I'm reading off the screen here, so if I don't give you constant eye contact, then that's just one of those things. But about a month ago, I put out a poll on this channel asking if you guys wanted a video on how to tell when a Thailand story sounds like it's AI generated. I said if it got over 75% yes and over 100 votes, I would make that video, and that's what I'm doing right now. Because 81% of you guys said yes, you would like to hear that, and over 200 votes, just under 200 votes, sorry. So yeah, that's why we're here. Before we start though, I want it to be abundantly clear. I'm not calling out any channels here. I'm not naming channels, and this isn't about that at all. I'm not here to say that AI is always breaking YouTube's terms of service. That's not the case either. But my issue is not necessarily AI in and of itself. My issue is the gap in understanding between what is AI and what isn't, and many people watching AI content not knowing that they are doing so. That's where I have the problem. For me, this stuff is obvious. It's uncannily obvious in a way. And I can usually tell almost straight away if something is AI or not, usually in the first few sentences, because it's become clear, it's obvious, when you're living in this space for over a year, such as me. Part of the reason that I'm so confident to make this video is because my own channel has been accused of being AI before more times than I care to remember. And to me that just shows how blurred and confused this whole space has become, because I know exactly how my channel was built, and AI was never something that I was interested in. I've been living in Thailand for around about 20 years now, and I started this channel because I wanted to share lived-in Thailand stories that accurately resemble what Thailand is like for people who have actually lived here and who are sharing actual experiences. And AI just simply can't come close to capturing what Thailand is like because AI has never been there. It can only recognize patterns. I've also seen so many people throwing around the term AI for so many things now. Almost anything, someone is screaming at it saying it's AI, even though in many instances it's obvious that there's been a clear human voice behind it. So I'm not in a way in this video pretending that I can spot something so subtle that only a genius can spot. That's not the case at all. For me, the differences aren't subtle at all. They're huge differences. And the gap in structure, phrasing and feel is obvious once you hear it properly. And you just can't unhear it. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not going to stop when we're reading through the story at every single tell, because if I did, we'd be stopping every 5 seconds. So what I'm going to do is read a big chunk, then I'll stop and break that chunk down, point out the tells as smoothly as I can, and then get back to the rest of the story. And I believe it's very important for you guys to listen to the end, just so that we can get this video to as many people as possible, so they can make more informed decisions as to what content they are consuming. Once we get to the end, I will also tell you how to spot what an AI voice sounds like. If you've heard things like this, then that's a good example. But anyway, we'll get to that at the end. Before we get into it, guys, just to say I do have a new Patreon. I'm going to be including exclusive stories on there, both from the Thailand and the Philippines, just so that we can take a bit of a step away from YouTube. With all the AI stuff going on at the moment, AI channels growing so much faster than human channels, it's getting more difficult. And yeah, I want to continue doing what I'm doing. It's a passion of mine. I love being able to share these Thailand stories. So check out the Patreon in the description, exclusive stories on there, which will never be put on YouTube. Also, I've just released a new website offering a few things on there. It's nowhere near finished yet. It's just a work in progress, but something I'm thinking about doing into March. Really want to take this channel to the next level. Really want to continue with this. It's a passion of mine. I love doing what I'm doing, but competing with AI is getting more and more difficult. Now, I'm also offering $500, a $500 prize to anyone who can generate an AI Thailand story that genuinely tricks me. The email address is in the description, so if you think that you can actually prove me wrong, send it over. There are a few rules to this. For a start, you're not allowed to alter any of the AI-generated text yourself. The story has to be the right length that could realistically fit on this channel, and don't tell me it's AI before I read it. You need to keep a video of yourself actually making this, but you don't have to show your face, and you need to be willing for that video to be shown on the channel if you win or lose. The idea behind this is to say, if I can be proved wrong, I will tell you guys that this story was generated by AI, and I'll put my hand up and say, I can't tell anymore. But I'm so confident that's not going to happen that I'm offering $500 if you can prove me wrong. I think that's going to be interesting. Anyway, let's get into the story. I hope by the end of it, you can really clearly tell what an AI story is, how you can tell, and why it's really destroying real Thailand stories. Let's get into it, guys. Right. I don't really do this. I'm not the type of bloke who writes to YouTube channels about his personal life. I once went 3 years without telling my own brother I'd had a knee replacement. That's the kind of man I am. Quiet, private, fix it yourself and don't make a fuss. But I've been carrying this around for long enough now, and keeping it inside hasn't made it lighter. If anything, it's settled into my bones like a damp in an old wall. The kind you don't notice until the whole thing starts crumbling. My name's Graeme. I'm 60 now, but this story starts when I was 55, sitting in my kitchen in Sunderland, staring at a number on screen that looked bigger than it actually was. £250,000. That was the sum total of 32 years of plastering, council flats, new builds, extensions for peoples who wanted a conservatory but couldn't afford the heating to sit in it. My hands looked like they'd been dragged behind a van. My knees sounded like someone stepping on bubble wrap every time I stood up. But the money was there, sitting in my account like a promise I hadn't figured out how to keep yet. I'd been divorced since 2008. Sandra took the house, which was fair because she also took the kids, the dog, and whatever was left of my dignity after 21 years of marriage that ended the way most long ones do. Not with a bang, just a long, slow puncture that lets all the air out so gradually you don't even notice you're flat until you try to move. The boys were grown. Craig was in Manchester doing something with computers. Liam was in the army. Neither of them needed much from me anymore, and I'd stopped pretending that didn't sting somewhere around 2015. When I sold the plastering van and handed back the last keys to a job I'd been doing since Thatcher was still frightening people, I sat in my rented flat and realised the most exciting part of my week was the Tuesday Asda shop. I'd stand in the frozen aisle comparing pizza prices like it was a career, go home, eat it in front of the telly, and fall asleep before the 10 o'clock news. That was my life, steady, predictable, and so quiet I could hear my own thoughts, which, as it turns out, isn't always a pleasant experience. A mate of mine, Dino, had moved to Pattaya 2 years earlier. He kept sending me photos, blue skies, cold beers, plates of food that cost less than a bag of crisps back home. He'd ring me on a Sunday night while I was scraping ice off my windscreen and saying things like, "It's 29 degrees here. I'm eating prawns the size of your fist." I'd tell him to shut up and then stand there in the cold, thinking about prawns. I didn't make a rash decision. That's important. I spent months doing the research. I built spreadsheets, proper ones, colour-coded, the works. Rent, food, visa costs, health insurance, price of a pint in Pattaya versus a pint in Sunderland. I watched every YouTube video going. Blokes who looked like they retired geography teachers, but spoke with the confidence of brain surgeons, telling me I could live like a king on £1,000 a month. I read expat forums where half the men said Thailand was the best thing that ever happened to them, and the other half said it was a Venus flytrap designed to catch lonely men with pensions and good intentions. I told myself I was going in with my eyes open. I told myself I wasn't one of those blokes. I told myself the spreadsheet would protect me. That was the first lie I believed, that a man with a calculator couldn't be fooled. I landed in Pattaya on Tuesday afternoon in March 2014 with 2 suitcases, a carrier bag full of adapters I didn't need, and a confidence level that should have come with a warning label and a safety harness. The heat hit me like opening an oven door. Tuk-tuks screamed past like hairdryers on wheels with a death wish. The air smelled like grilled meat and petrol and something sweet I couldn't place. Dino picked me up in a rented Toyota that had seen better decades and drove me to a condo he'd sorted. Small, clean, air-conditioned, with a balcony that overlooked a car park. But it was warm, and it was mine, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the most boring man in any given room. The first few weeks were exactly what the spreadsheet promised. I ate street food for 40 baht. I found a gym full of old expats and confused teenagers. I walked along the beach in the evenings, and every night I'd open my laptop and check the numbers like it was scripture. Rent, groceries, transport, all comfortably under budget. I was spending about 35,000 baht a month. Back in Sunderland, that wouldn't have covered the rent and the gas bill. Here I was living like a man who'd finally worked out the cheat code to a game everyone else was losing. I think now is a good time to break down all the tells because, well, every single sentence was a tell because of just the way it's written. But I'm going to break them down step by step. And yeah, this is the important bit. Of course, we'll get into the rest of the story after that. And I think you guys should be able to tell after I've pointed things out. At least I believe, which is why I'm making this video. Anyway, the opening line, type of bloke who writes to YouTube channels about his personal life. You can tell it's AI, but there aren't any specific tells in the first line because it's just a line. I once went 3 years without telling my own brother I'd had a knee replacement. That's the kind of man I am. Quiet, private, fix it yourself and don't make a fuss. Now that's the first AI, clear AI tell in the story. The way he says, that's the kind of man I am. Quiet, private, fix it yourself and don't make a fuss. It's very literary. It's very trying to be clever. It's very... The writing is too good for a start for the person who's described in this video, this story. He's a plasterer from Sunderland who plasters council taxes, and he's got this literary sense about him where he can write better than most professional writers. Again, that's wrong. And also, it's not the sort of words that real people use. Quiet, private, fix it yourself and don't make a fuss. Now, you might think some people use these phrases and some people will, but this just screams AI. Actual people don't write like that. They write a lot more figuratively. They describe things like real as opposed to fluffy, as opposed to frilly, as opposed to nonsensical like this is. And it gets worse as we go along. I've been carrying this around for long enough now, and keeping it inside hasn't made it lighter. Made it lighter. Lighter isn't a word that somebody would use in that instance at all. If anything, it settled into my bones like damp in an old wall. Again, complete nonsense, nonsensical. It's just got AI all over it. The way, if anything, it settled into my bones like damp in an old wall. What would a real person say in that situation, in that way? The kind of thing you notice until it starts crumbling. Yeah, okay, all AI. Sitting in my kitchen in Sunderland, staring at a number on a screen that looked bigger than it actually was. That's got AI written all over it. People don't say that. I don't say that. I don't know anybody that says that. I've never seen an actual story that says anything like staring at a number on screen that looked bigger than it actually was. I had some money, and it looked bigger than it was. I mean, that's just nonsense. £250,000. That was the sum total of 32 years of plastering, council flats, new bills, extensions for people who wanted a conservatory but couldn't afford the heating to sit in it. Again, that's just got AI written all over it. Just the way it's structured, the way it's used, and the metaphors that are used to describe it. My hands looked like they'd been dragged behind a van. My knees sounded like someone stepping on bubble wrap every time I stood up. But the money was there, sitting in my account like a promise I hadn't figured out how to keep. Again, it's just too metaphoric. It's too like he's trying to be a literary genius, like a promise I hadn't figured out how to keep. That's got AI written all over it. You can just tell, oh, that's an AI sentence. That's AI, just the way the sentence is used. And that's the first two paragraphs. Plastering that handed back the keys to a job I'd been doing since Thatcher was still frightening people. Again, it's not describing what he was doing. He's trying to make it too story-like. Again, it's a story, but it's AI. People don't write like that. So that's another tell there. Steady is a word that AI uses often. It can be used in a non-AI story, but steady is very, very commonly used in AI stories. So quiet I could hear my own thoughts. You wouldn't say it that way if it was an actual person from experience, and yeah, it just screams AI. Now let's skip the next bit, although it's got lots of tells in it. The bit where he's talking about making a rash decision. Spent months doing research. Spreadsheets. I built spreadsheets. That's the clearest of all AI tells you will ever hear. If I get a story that says spreadsheets in it, I'm not even going to I'm not even going to spend any more time looking at it because spreadsheets is one of the things that AI uses in pretty much every story. If you don't hear it in an AI story, it means that it's been removed because it's been there so many times. I built spreadsheets. Okay, AI. You hear spreadsheets, chances are it's AI. Proper ones, color-coded, the works. Rent, food, visa costs, health insurance, the price of a pint in Pattaya. The way it's put together is just put together by AI, you can clearly tell. Okay, expat forums women telling the best thing. Venus flytrap, designed to catch lonely men with pensions and good intentions. Now that's an interesting one. Describing Thailand as a Venus flytrap. Although that might make sense in certain ways, the way it says after that, designed to catch lonely men with pensions and good intentions, that's just got the hallmarks of AI written all over it, that it's just undeniable that that's AI, just the way that it's, the words that are used, the selected words. And if you try to get AI to not write like this, it can't. And it just can't. So that's just a scream all over. With pensions and good intentions, okay, a 60-year-old plasterer is not going to write like that. I told myself I was going in with my eyes open. I told myself I was one of those blokes. I told myself the spreadsheet would protect me. That was the first lie I believed, that a man with a calculator couldn't be fooled. It's painful. It's painful to read because it's just so bad. And that's the problem. Channels that you guys watch, some of you, my audience, you're watching channels with content like this that is the top 3 channels that my audience watches. And these are what the stories sound like. Again, I'm not going to be naming channels because that's not what this is about. Okay, so let's continue reading. I'll do a chunk of it and then we can break down some more. I even started sending smug messages to Dino, who lived 20 minutes away and had somehow already blown through most of his savings on a karaoke bar he co-owned with a woman named Pim, who may or may not have been married to somebody else. I told him I was different, disciplined. I had the spreadsheet. I had the plan. I wasn't going to be one of those blokes who hands over his life savings to a woman he met in a bar. I said that out loud, by the way, to his face, over a beer. He laughed so hard he choked on a cashew nut. Should have taken that as a sign. I met Ploy on a night I wasn't supposed to go out. I'd been in Pattaya about 4 months by then, settled into a routine so steady it had its own heartbeat. Gym in the morning, coffee at night. Same one where the woman started making my order before I reached the counter. A bit of reading in the afternoon, early dinner, home by 8, controlled, predictable, safe. The kind of life a spreadsheet approves of. So it's painful, it's painful. But Dino had been on at me for weeks. You didn't move to Thailand to sit in your room watching Countdown on YouTube. He had a point, even if I didn't want to admit it. So one Friday evening, I let him drag me out to a bar on Second Road. Not the wild kind, or at least that's what I told myself. It had stools and music and cold drinks and people who looked like they'd made peace with being nowhere in particular. The lights were low, the bass hummed through the floor like a second heartbeat. I sat down at the edge of all of it with a chang in my hand and tried to take in the room without getting pulled into it. That's when I noticed Ploy. She wasn't putting on a show. She was working, sure, but she carried herself like someone rationing her effort. Careful, measured, like she'd learned the hard way not to waste movement on people who weren't worth it. 32 years on building sites teaches you to spot the differences between people performing and someone just getting through a shift. She wandered over eventually, wanted to know where I'd come from. Her English wasn't polished, but it got the job done. Mine's not much better on a good day, so we found a middle ground that worked. I told her Sunderland. She gave a little nod, the kind people do when they've never heard of somewhere but don't want to admit it. She asked what I did. I told her I used to plaster walls. She laughed and said, "You fix things?" I said, "Used to. Now I just sit around." She smiled at that. Not a big performance smile, just a small one, like she understood something about being tired and 23 shouldn't show you yet. Sorry, I read that bit a bit wrong. She was 23. I knew that was young. Obviously I knew. But nothing about her screamed opportunist. She didn't lean in too close or compliment me too fast or do any of the things that forums warned about. She just talked. Asked me about the weather back home, about whether I missed it, about why I'd come here. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, It was in this calm, almost sleepy way that made the whole bar feel quieter than it was. We talked for about an hour. I bought her a drink. She told me about her family in Isan, her mum, her younger brother, her grandmother who grew rice and complained about everything. She said she was saving money to go back and help them. She said she didn't want to work in bars forever. There's a way people sound when they talk about the ones they're trying to protect. It comes through in the pauses, in the way their eyes drift sideways like they're picturing someone who isn't in the room. I caught it in her voice that night, and something inside me responded to it before I'd given it permission, like stumbling into a lit kitchen when you've been wandering a dark corridor for years. When I left that night, Dino grinned at me and said, "You're done for, mate." I told him to do one. Told him she was just someone I'd talk to. But I kept thinking about the way she'd look at me when I said I could fix things. Like maybe a bloke who knew how to fix things still had some value left in him. I didn't know it then, but that look was the crack in the armour. The whole thing traces back to that moment. A conversation that felt ordinary and a feeling I should have examined more closely before I let it settle in and start furnishing the place. I went back the next night, then the next. Told myself I just liked the company. Told myself I was on a permanent holiday and allowed to talk to whoever I pleased. By the end of that week, I knew her schedule better than I knew the streets around my condo, and that should have told me something about where I was headed. But when a man like me finally feels seen again, really seen, not just glanced at and dismissed, he'll rearrange his entire routine just to keep that feeling warm, and I did, quietly, without telling anyone. I rearranged everything. After about 6 weeks of seeing each other, bars, drinks, walks along the seafront where she'd hold my hand without looking at me, just a quiet kind of comfort like she didn't care who saw, Ploy told me she wanted to stop working. She said it over green curry at a plastic table outside a place that didn't have a name, just a woman with a wok and a reputation. "I don't want bar life," she said. "I want be good woman, for my family, for you, if you want." I didn't know what to say. What do you say to something like that? I'm a retired plasterer from Sunderland. I'm not a saviour. I'm not even particularly interesting after the second pint. But something shifted in my chest when she said it, like a door opening in a room I thought was locked. I nodded, and whatever caution I'd been carrying around like a toolbox I never opened, just sort of set itself down. That was the moment things changed. Not in any way you'd see from the outside. Just a slight tilt in the floor of my life, barely noticeable, unless you were the one standing on it. A tiny crack in a wall I thought was solid. The kind you ignore because everything else still looks fine. She moved in with me about a month later. Not dramatically. She just started staying more and more until one morning I noticed her toothbrush was in the cup and her flip-flops were by the door and her shampoo had colonised the entire bathroom shelf. It happened the way weather changes in England. Slowly, then all at once. And by the time you notice, you've already soaked. Life with Ploy was easy. That's the word I kept coming back to, easy. She cooked, I cleaned. She'd fall asleep on the sofa halfway through whatever we were watching, and I'd put a blanket over her and turn off the light. We had a routine. Same woman at the coffee cart every morning who started making my order before I reached the counter. Same noodle place for lunch. Same quiet evenings where the biggest decision was whether to get mango sticky rice or not. It felt calm. After my divorce, calm was the only luxury I actually wanted. She never asked for money. That was the biggest green flag to me. She'd buy groceries sometimes. She'd insist on paying for street food if I let her. She didn't want designer bags or gold necklaces or weekends in Bangkok. She seemed happy with simple, and simple was all I had to offer. Then came the village. About 5 months in, Ploy suggested I visit her family in Isan. She said it was like nothing. "You want to see my home? My mama won't meet you." Honestly, it sounded like the kind of boring I'd been craving for years. Rice fields, quiet roads, someone's grandmother making soup. I said yes before I'd even thought about it, which is becoming a pattern you might have noticed by now. We took a van north. 7 hours of winding roads, warmed bottled water, and a driver who treated speed limits like gentle suggestions from a government he didn't respect. Ploy didn't complain once. She curled up in her seat and paid something on her phone with a monk on a screen addiction. I spent most of the ride staring out of the window at the flat, green land rolling past and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? It's in a good way. Like maybe this was the kind of strange decision that leads somewhere worth arriving. Anyway, let's do a little bit of a breakdown, but where do you begin? It's just... Now, the way I like to describe AI, one thing you have to remember, AI picks up on patterns. And that's why lots of the stories sound so similar, because they're taking from the same patterns, using the same kind of words and the same kind of sentences. And routine is a word that AI uses in pretty much nearly every story. But what I'm trying to get across here is it's the little sentences where he's using some kind of metaphor to describe something that a person just doesn't use. I've never heard something like this in an actual story. And the way he describes, well, landing in Pattaya. Can you really land in Pattaya? Well, you can land in Rayong, I think, but you can't land in Pattaya, can you? Because there's no airport there. He's talking about YouTube and it's 2015. Did they have YouTube content creators in 2015? Not that big as today. These are little things that you can pick up on. But it's just the way it's written that I'm trying to get across here. Every single sentence, you can tell it's AI. And the thing I like to think about, and this is just how I would describe it. If you think of AI like an elastic band, and you can stretch it and you can pull it and you can do things with it, but you can't snap it. You can't take it away from this AI feeling into being more human. You can try things and you can try and manipulate it, but it just doesn't work in the way that many people seem to think it does. And it's like, it doesn't sound human. It doesn't sound like a person writing. It sounds like someone's trying to be the best writer in the world, and it doesn't fit in with who this person is supposedly meant to be. Like the way he says 7 hours of winding roads, warm bottled water, and a driver who treated speed limits like gentle suggestions from a government he didn't respect. Now that's an interesting sentence. Clearly AI. It's got AI written all over it. But you might be thinking, well, that sounds good. That's a good sentence. But that's the thing. Most people, at least in my experience, aren't brilliant writers. In fact, most people are not good writers at all. And AI, I think what I'm getting at here in this sentence and other ones like it, it's too perfect. AI is better at writing than people. So if the story sounds like it's a perfect story, it's AI, because people don't usually write like that, especially the people in the stories that we're trying to share here. It goes against everything about who most of these people are. Played something on her phone like a monk with a screen addiction. People just don't say that. Flat green rolling out past and thinking, what the hell am I doing here? But in a good way. A strange decision that leads somewhere worth arriving at. Again, it's too literary, isn't it? It's too, I don't know, it's too poetic in a way. That's the thing, that's the word, poetic. Real stories aren't poetic, they're just people describing their experiences. This is a guy trying to win, whatever award you would win for writing the best story in history kind of thing. Of course, it doesn't sound like that, but that's what I'm trying to get at here. AI is trying to make the best story possible, whereas real stories are trying to be as real as possible. And this just doesn't sound like a genuine interaction between someone of that age in Thailand and a girl who in that position, because from experience of all the stories that I've looked into and shared and been involved with, it's so different. It's different. It's a different everything. It's just the mentality of these so-called people aren't real. It's so obvious. But again, hopefully we're getting somewhere with this. And I'm going to read some more of it, and we'll see where it goes from here. Her village was tiny. One of those places with 2 shops, 4 dogs, and a cockerel that had decided 4 in the morning was an acceptable time to audition for a career in psychological warfare. It was hot, still, and so quiet. I could hear the insects arguing. Her mum was kind, small woman, big smile, offered me water and a mat to sit on like I was visiting royalty, and she was apologising for the palace being under renovation. Her brother was a teenager who barely looked up from his phone, which meant he was either indifferent or secretly planning my downfall. Hard to tell with teenagers. She'd basically the same in every country. The next morning, Ploy walked out to a patch of land behind the house, flat, dry, overgrown, with grass up to my knees and a few trees leaning like an old man who had given up on standing properly. She pointed at it and said, "My family land. My papa give to me, but no house." I stood there, looking at the scrubby bit of earth and felt something click, like finding the right key for a lock you didn't know you'd been carrying. I'd built things my whole life: walls, ceilings, extension, porches. I knew what a house needed. I knew the cost, and there was someone who didn't want a party or a holiday or a gold bracelet. She wanted a home, a proper one, for her family. She didn't ask me to build it. That was her genius. She didn't ask for anything. She just looked at that empty plot with those quiet, dark eyes and said, "One day, maybe. Small house, nothing big." And then she squeezed my hand and changed the subject. But the seed was planted. And that's the problem with ideas like that. They don't wait for permission. They just take root in whatever soft ground they can find. And by the time you notice, they've already wrapped themselves around everything you were trying to protect. Back in Pattaya, I started doing what I always do when life presents me with a problem that has a practical solution. I researched, I found builders, got quotes, compared prices. I pulled out a notebook and started sketching floor plans the way I used to sketch plastering layouts. Rectangle rooms, open kitchens, big windows. Ploy leaned over my shoulder watching every line like it was magic, like I was drawing a future neither of us had been brave enough to say out loud. I'm going to have to cut in very briefly and say that paragraph, it's painful to read when you know it's AI. And if I see it, you can just tell immediately. That's just not how it works in Thailand, for a start. And it sounds nothing like a human writing a story, because unless he's one of the best writers ever, then he's not going to write that. And he looked at builders. Does he speak Thai? We don't know. So many things you can point at. And to me, it's very important. Every single thing has to line up. Otherwise, you start asking questions. The first payment went out in November 2014. 50,000 baht. Foundation work, clearing the land, basic materials. I paid the contractor directly, kept receipts, started a spreadsheet. Here we go, another one. A new one, separate from the living cost one, because apparently I believed that having two spreadsheets made me twice as careful. Ploy started calling it our house, said she'd make me proper Isan food every night, said the fruit trees out back would be producing within a couple of seasons. I started daydreaming about retirement the way it's supposed to look, sitting on the front step with a cup of tea, watching the sun drop behind the paddies while she sorted dinner and the neighbour's kids kicked a ball around the yard. It was a nice picture, warm, comfortable, the kind of image that fills the empty spaces in a man who hasn't felt needed in a long time. I visited the build every couple of weeks, took the bus out, stayed in a guest house nearby that charged 400 baht a night and had a mattress that felt like sleeping on a folded opinion. But I didn't care. I'd walk the site, check the walls, talk to the builders, 3 lads and 1 kid who looked about 16 but could lay bricks like he was born doing it. I'd drink warm beer with them when the sun went down and feel like I had a purpose again, like someone needed me, like I wasn't a man waiting out his days in a rented condo, watching his savings slowly deflate like a balloon no one was holding onto. It's painful, it's so painful. That's why it hurts me so much when people listen to this stuff, believing it's a real story. Anyway, the money kept going out. Not fast, but steady. 60,000 here, 40,000 there. Tiles, wiring, plumbing, a water tank, a roof that didn't leak. Receipts in Thai I couldn't read. Photos of progress sent through line. I told myself it was an investment, not a gift. An investment in our future. You hear that? That's the sound of a man building his own trap door and calling it a patio. Her family started treating me like I was already part of the furniture. Her mum called me Graeme in that sweet half-English way that made me name sound like a dessert. Her uncle gave me a bottle of whiskey. The neighbours waved. I felt folded in, wrapped up, like I'd been stitched into something warm after years of standing in the cold. Then came the ceremony. I thought it was just dinner. But when we got to the house, there were monks, mats laid out, candles, flowers, and chanting that hummed through the walls like electricity through old wiring. Ploy tied white string around my wrist and smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world. Not wedding, she said. Lucky ceremony. For good life. Everyone clapped. Her uncle slapped me on the back and called me something I didn't understand and assumed it was friendly. I wasn't after a certificate or a diamond. I just needed her to keep looking at me the way she did that night, like I was the most reliable thing she'd ever leaned against. And for a while, she did. The house was finished in early 2016. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that worked, a bathroom that flushed, which in rural Isan is basically the Taj Mahal with a squat toilet upgrade. I stood on that porch I designed and looked out at the land and thought, damn, you actually did it. A 57-year-old retired plasterer from Sunderland, standing in a rice field next to a house he helped build with money he earned, crawling through ceilings for 3 decades. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life and been told I could keep it. And again, it's just so painful. It's so painful to listen to. You can tell that, based on this story, that AI obviously doesn't know what Isan is like. The way it describes things is extremely wrong. I've been to Isan. I was there, was it a week or 2 weeks ago, filming footage for the videos. The way is so poetic, fakely poetic. It's just painful, and I keep saying painful. But if you can't tell that that's AI, then hopefully now you can. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life and been told I could keep it. People don't say that. A 57-year-old retired plasterer from Sunderland, standing in a rice field next to a house he helped build with money he earned, crawling through ceilings for 3 decades. People don't say that. Not even close. It's just... It beggars belief that, that YouTube lets people put stories like this up in a way that, well, anyway. We took a photo that day, me, Ploy, her mum, her brother pulling some daft face at the camera. Ploy smiled, but something behind it looked flat, like the expression arrived at her mouth but forgot to tell her eyes. I blamed it on tiredness. The build had been long, hot, and full of arguments with builders who thought deadlines were decorative. Maybe she just needed a rest. Maybe she was overwhelmed. I told myself a lot of maybes that year, but a whole cathedral of maybes, and never once checked in on the foundation and if it was real. The cracks didn't appear all at once. That's the thing no one tells you. That's no dramatic confrontation, no stormy night where she screams and you pack your bags. It unravels slowly, like pulling a thread on a jumper you thought was solid, 1 stitch at a time, so gentle you don't feel it until you're standing there in the cold, wondering where the warmth went. Ploy started getting busy. That's how she put it, busy. She'd be gone for a day visiting her sister in Khon Kaen, then overnight, then 2 nights. I didn't question it at first. She had family, she had a life before me. I didn't want to be the possessive foreigner hovering over her schedule like a drone with trust issues. But there were small things. A new phone she said her cousin gave her. Trips to town that took longer than they should. And a bloke. Young lad. Late 20s. Always somewhere nearby. Not in the house, just around it. Sitting on the neighbour's wall smoking. Helping move something. Leaning on a motorbike like he was waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. I asked Ploy about him once, casual. Who's that lad? Seemed like he's always about. She didn't flinch. My cousin. He no have job, he lazy, but okay. I let it go. Told myself it was village life. Everyone knows everyone. People hanging around is normal. I didn't want to ruin what we had with doubt. Because once you start asking questions in a life you've invested everything into, you have to be prepared for answers that take the whole thing apart. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. But the doubt didn't go away. It just parked itself in the back of my head and refused to leave, like a tenant who doesn't pay rent but knows you won't change the locks. She stopped calling me T-Rack, started using my name again, stopped reaching for my hand when we walked. The cooking got less frequent, the evenings got quieter, not in the comfortable way. in the way that silence fills a room when two people are thinking different things, and neither one wants to say it first. I remember one night, sitting on the porch, eating sticky rice and grilled chicken. The porch I'd designed, on the floor I'd paid for, under the roof I'd sweated over, and I tried to make her laugh. She said something stupid. Can't even remember what. She smiled, but it was thin, like she was playing a role she'd already mentally quit. She didn't look up from her phone. That's when I felt it. Not a crack, more like a shift, like the ground I was standing on had been quietly replaced with something that looked the same but couldn't hold the same weight. By 2017, the money was getting lighter. Not emergency levels, not yet, but the spreadsheet I'd once treated like a holy text was starting to tell a story I didn't want to read. I'd spent just over £120,000 on the house, the land improvements, the furniture, the appliances, the motorbike I'd bought her so she could get around, the water tank, the fence, the garden, the endless parade of small costs that individually meant nothing, but collectively were eating me alive in the politest way possible. Living costs had crept up too. I wasn't wild. I didn't drink much, didn't go out, didn't do anything the forums would warn you about. But 5 years in Thailand has a way of loosening the screws of your discipline. The budget that once felt sacred started feeling like a suggestion. A meal here, a repair there, a gift for her mother, a new uniform for her brother, a contribution to someone's wedding in the village I'd never met. Each one felt small. Each one felt like the kind thing to do. Each one was another brick removed from a wall I was pretending was still standing. By late 2018, I was sitting on about £60,000. That sounds like a lot until you realise it's supposed to last the rest of your life and you're 59 years old with knees that sound like someone chewing gravel. The spreadsheet had gone from green to amber to a shade of red I'd only ever seen on fire engines and final demands. I should have said something, should have pulled back, should have had the conversation no one wants to have, the one where you sit down and say, I can't keep doing this. But every time I thought about it, Ploy would cook dinner, or her mum would call me Graeme and ask about my health, or the little girl from next door would wave at me from the road, and I'd push it back down. Because the alternative, admitting that the life I'd built here was a sandcastle and the tide was coming, was too much to look at straight on. So I looked away, and I kept looking away until the day I couldn't anymore. It happened on a Tuesday. Isn't it always a Tuesday? The most boring day of the week. The one where nothing's supposed to happen. I'd gone into town to sort some visa paperwork. Should have been back by afternoon, but the immigration office moved like it was powered by apathy and ceiling fans, so I didn't leave until almost 4. I didn't tell Ploy I was coming back early. Not because I was suspicious, not consciously anyway. I'd just stopped texting her my every movement in a while back, and she'd stopped asking. We'd drifted into that space where two people share a house but not a frequency, like two radios playing different stations in the same room. When I pulled up to the house on my scooter, the yard was quiet, too quiet. No TV sound, no cooking smells, nothing spilling out the windows to tell me someone was home. But there was a motorbike I didn't recognise parked by the fence. Not the brothers, not the neighbours, a newer one, black, with a scratch on the side I'd never seen before. My stomach did that thing, you know the one, that slow, heavy turn that isn't quite nausea and isn't quite fear. It's your body telling you something your brain hasn't caught up with yet. I stood there for a second, looking at that motorbike like it owed me an explanation. Then I walked to the front door. It was unlocked. It was always unlocked. That was village life. I pushed it open and heard voices. Not arguing, not laughing, just low, comfortable talking. The kind of sound two people make when they think they're alone and have no reason to be careful. I walked down the short hallway, the hallway I'd tiled myself one weekend because the builder had done a terrible job and I couldn't stand looking at it, and stopped at the bedroom door. It was slightly open. I pushed it with 2 fingers. Ploy was sitting on the bed. Next to her, shirtless, legs crossed, beer in hand, completely at home, was the cousin. The same lad who'd been hovering around the build site for years. The same one she said was unemployed, harmless, lazy but sweet. He was leaning back against the headboard I'd picked out in a shop in Khon Kaen because she said she wanted something simple, scrolling through his phone like it was a Sunday afternoon and he had nowhere else to be. They both looked up. She didn't scream, he didn't jump. There was no scramble for clothes, no movie scene panic. She just looked at me and said, in the calmest voice I've ever heard from another human being, "Why you come back early?" No apology, no scrambled excuse, no attempt to rearrange the scene, just that one question, delivered with the calm of someone asking why you'd shown to a party you weren't invited to, like I'd broken the agreement by walking into my own house. I stood there, silent, like someone had quietly removed the floor from under me while I was still standing on it. You don't fall right away, you just feel unstable, like gravity's still deciding what to do with you. I asked, I thought he was your cousin. She blinked, once, slowly, then said, "Before, he my boyfriend. We separate, but now he come back." That was it. No long confession, no tears, no dramatic explanation. Just a woman telling me, in 12 words, that the entire life I'd built here was someone else's all along. I'd been painting someone else's house, plastering someone else's walls, pouring my savings into a future that had another man's name written on the deed in ink I couldn't read. I didn't yell. That surprised me. I thought I'd feel rage, heat, fire, something explosive. Years of plastering taught me what heat does to surfaces. It warps them, changes their shape, makes them crack in ways you can't fix. But standing there in that doorway, I didn't feel heat. I felt something colder. Like my chest just switched itself off and my brain stepped in, wearing a high-vis vest and carrying a damage report. I turned around, walked back down the hallway, past the kitchen I'd wired, past the porch I'd designed, past the steps I'd watched them pour, and got on my scooter. I didn't take anything. Left my clothes, my tools, my good shoes, the ones I bought for the ceremony. Left the lot. I rode back to the main town with my hat pulled low and the wind doing the thing where it sounds like the whole world is trying to say something but can't quite get the words out. I checked into a guest house in the nearest town. 500 baht a night, hard mattress, thin walls, a ceiling fan that turned with the conviction of a man who'd retired emotionally but hadn't handed in his notice. The kind of room where ambition goes to sit in the corner and stare at the wall. I lay there all night, staring at that fan, which rotated with the euphemism of a man who'd been asked to do one more thing at the end of a long shift, running numbers in my head like a man counting the cost of a fire after the building's already gone. House and land improvements, 3.8 million baht. Furniture and appliances, 400,000. Motorbike, 65,000. Living expenses over 5 years, including all the quiet generosities that added up to a landslide, another 2.2 million. I'd turned £250,000 into approximately 63,000. Over 180 grand gone. Not stolen, given. Handed over willingly, brick by brick, meal by meal, smile by a smile, until there was nothing left but the man who'd carried it all, and the empty space where it used to be. Ploy sent one message the next day. "I sorry, I not want hurt you." I read it 3 times. Not because I was looking for meaning. There wasn't any to find. I just needed to see those words sitting there on the screen like a receipt for something I'd already paid too much for. I didn't reply. Dino came to get me 2 days later, didn't say much, drove me back to Pattaya, brought me a beer, sat there while I stared at the wall of his flat like it owed me money. He didn't say "I told you so," I'll give him that. He just said, "What do you want to do, mate?" And I said the only thing I could think of, go home. I booked a one-way flight to Manchester, packed what I had into a carry-on bag, sat at the airport for 4 hours because I couldn't face being in that city for one more evening. When the plane lifted off, I looked down at the lights of Bangkok spreading out below me and felt something I can only describe as the opposite of arrival, like watching a door close on a room you'd furnish with everything you had, knowing you'd never get any of it back. Customs at Manchester pulled me aside for a random check. The officer asked what I was bringing back. I said, just clothes and some lessons. He didn't laugh, just waved me through with that face border staff make when they've already decided you're not interested enough to detain. My sister Wendy picked me up. She lives in Middlesbrough in a terraced house with Mongolia walls and a cat that judges everyone equally. She didn't ask too many questions, bless her. Just made me a cuppa, showed me the spare room, single bed, wallpaper from 1997, a radiator that clicks at night like it's trying to communicate in Morse code, and told me to stay as long as I needed. I didn't tell her everything, still haven't, just said it didn't work out and left it at that. What was I supposed to say? That I spent 5 years building someone else's future? That I learned how to say I love you in a language I couldn't read? that I got replaced by a man who had been standing in the garden the whole time and I was too busy checking my spreadsheet to see him? For a few months, I did nothing, just existed, went to the shops, watched telly, helped Wendy with the garden. My world shrank down to 3 rooms and a cat that hissed every time I opened the fridge. I stopped checking my bank balance because the number didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a countdown, a timer ticking towards the day I'd made a make decision I wasn't ready for. I'd walk past the river most mornings, early, when no one else was about. Middlesbrough doesn't look its best at any time of the day, but at 6 in the morning, with mist sitting on the water and the bridge looking like something from a painting someone gave up halfway through, it's kind of quiet to it that I needed. Not comfortable quiet, not peaceful, just the absence of noise, which is different. It's the sound of a life that's been emptied out and hasn't figured out what to fill itself with. It's 2026 now. I'm older, still in Middlesbrough. I've got about £48,000, which is roughly what a 1-bedroom flat costs in a part of town where the bins get collected on time. My pension is due soon. When it does, I'm going back. Not to find ploy, not to go back to that village or that house or that porch. I'm going back because the numbers still work. Because a pension and a small pot of savings will stretch further than they will ever hear. Because I'd rather be broken warm than broken freezing, staring at Wendy's cat while it judges me from the radiator. Will I meet someone? Maybe. Probably. I know myself well enough to know I'll end up sitting at some bar somewhere, talking to some woman who laughs at my terrible jokes and makes me feel like I've got something to offer. And when that happens, I hope I'm smarter. I hope I remember the spreadsheet and the cousin and the look on Ploy's face when she said, "Why you come back early?" I hope I remember that you don't pour your savings into someone's foundation unless you're absolutely certain that what you're living is the finished version. Because the worst thing isn't losing the money, it's driving past a house with your fingerprints in the cement and someone else's shoes by the door. But honestly, I won't remember any of it. I'll probably sit there with a cold drink in my hand and a warm feeling in my chest and tell myself I'm different this time, that I've learned a lesson, that the spreadsheet will protect me, and the whole thing will start again. Quiet, steady, and slow. I won't feel it happening until it's already done. Money comes and goes, relationships end, people disappoint you. You recover from all that eventually, but losing the belief that you can build something that lasts, that's different, kind of empty. There's no manual for that, no receipt, no parts you can order and replace. I moved to Thailand thinking I'd found the answer to a question I'd been asking my whole life. How do you stop feeling like you're just running out the clock? Turns out the answer wasn't Thailand, it was never Thailand, it was just me, in a warmer postcode, making the same mistakes with better weather. And now, I'm back where I started, except lighter. Not in a good way, in the way a house feels lighter after you've stripped it back to the frame and realised there's nothing left worth insulating. Like a damp in an old wall, you know it's there. You just can't be bothered to fix it anymore. Anyway, that's the whole AI story. Broken a few bits of it down, but let's just go through it all, and I'll let you know about how to pick out or how to understand if it's an AI voice or not. But what I've said earlier on, with the breakdowns we've done so far, it's the way that the sentences and the paragraphs are structured, which makes it clear it's AI. The word choices, it's clear it's AI. The way it can't just describe something normally, it's got to make it more, got to try and make it better than it would be for somebody like him. And again, people don't write like that. Would you ever say, in the way a house feels lighter after you've stripped it back to the frame and realised there's nothing left worth insulating? That sounds like it's a very well thought out line. How many well thought out lines are in this whole story? I mean, it's just so implausible. And obviously it's AI because, as I said, Claude AI provided this in 4 minutes, this whole story. And you can pick it apart so easily and so basically. But the thing that is most important, I believe, is that there are stories like this being passed off as real stories. And people are listening to them thinking they're real. I think that's very upsetting because that's not what Talks of Thailand is ever meant to be about. Talks of Thailand this is a human story. This is a story of what Thailand is actually like, what actually happens, what people actually do. But these are just, it sounds nothing like an actual foreigner Thai person relationship. The way he describes things is just so not human. I lay there all night staring at that fan. Okay, that's another point. If you hear ceiling fan or sitting on the edge of the bed, all AI. The smells, usually that's how I describe things. I've heard some things dreadful in channels getting hundreds of thousands of views. One of the worst I heard was, I think this was, I can't remember which channel. I'm not giving channels away, but it said something like the humidity clung to this person in such an elaborate, over sophisticated way, which is so above who is meant to be writing this story, that should be all the tells you need. Now, when it comes to AI voice, now AI voices are getting a lot better. Now, I believe that I know 2 other channels that tell Thailand stories where they use their real voice, and both of them appear on camera. As far as I'm aware, there might be 1 other channel that uses their real voice, but every other channel is AI voice. Now, they are getting very good. 11 Labs is the website, and I'll show you some examples. I'll be overlaying that on screen. 11 Labs is where people get the voice from. Now, they have a few different voices. One is called 11 Labs Multilingual V2, doing a lot of research here. And that one is pretty lifelike. It sounds very close to a real voice. And they've got 11 V3, which is slightly better. Now, one thing that AI voices are at the moment getting a lot better at, and it's a very obvious tell, is the breaths. If you hear breaths in an AI in a voice that are quite similar throughout all of them and very unnatural, and all sound the same, then that's a very good tell that they're using 11v3 on 11 Labs. And it's sort of like kind of thing. The thing is, I know which channels, and I'm not going to be calling any of them out because that's not what this is about. And many people obviously don't care. If you want to listen to a story that's good, we can't necessarily say that this story that we've done today is a bad story. And it's not Thailand accurate in any way, shape or form. It's nowhere near Thailand accurate. It doesn't describe the country accurately, doesn't describe what a relationship is usually like between a foreigner and a Thai person accurately. What have we learned about Thailand from this video? Nothing. And hopefully, you'll understand exactly what I mean by this, because to me, it's always been a very obvious thing, which is why I was never concerned about it. But one of the biggest concerns is, as I've already mentioned, the story itself is not difficult to listen to if you don't know it's AI. It's not a bad story in the way it's structured, the beginning, middle, and end. It's not bad in that sense. It's just not accurate to what it's meant to be about. And it's using words and phrases that real people don't use. But because it's a good story, people listen to it. And that's why on Talks of Thailand, things are as difficult as they are at the moment. Because if a story is written by a human and a story is written by AI, stories written by humans, it's a lot more difficult for that to be structured in a way that builds retention like an AI story. Which is why AI stories are even worse. Because they're deliberately, and AI does this, they're deliberately written in a way to make people keep listening. Regardless of if it's real or not, regardless if it's accurate to Thailand or not, regardless of anything. It makes people keep listening, which is why they get views. It's not that it's bad content in the sense of it's dreadful, it's AI slop like other channels are. It's that it's fantastically written, but so inaccurate to the context of what it's meant to be about. Lots of channels don't even say that they use AI, which is against YouTube's terms. One thing I want all of you guys to do when you're listening to a Thailand story, now I have screenshots of every single channel that does this and don't do this, and things might change, but listen to a Thailand story, click on the description, and I'm actually going to bring up a video here so that I can tell you exactly what to do. This channel here, it's growing very fast. Doesn't matter how many subscribers because that would give it away. But if you click on a description, you can see if it's AI or not. How this was made, altered or synthetic content. When you're on the video, click on the More button at the description. Click on More. How this was made. If it says altered or synthetic content, they're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide it. That's what it is. If it says altered or synthetic content, that means that the voice is AI and the script is AI. Also, if they have something that says credits or something along those lines, and they have a link to a video of the walking footage or whatever footage they used, that means that they didn't even make the video themselves. That is on the screen. All the videos on my channel, I record myself. It also means most likely that they perhaps haven't even been to Thailand. They don't even know what it's like. Again, not a problem if it was a proper story. But the fact that this video, this story took 4 minutes, literally 4 minutes to generate off a very, very basic prompt. And if you use an AI voice, it would take 30 seconds to generate the audio for that video. Then you upload and do your thumbnails. You're talking about less than 30 minutes work for one video, probably 20 minutes work for one video. And the amount of time Talks of Thailand takes is so much more than that. Recording, for a start, editing, that takes hours, let alone getting a story, finding out it's not the right length or something's wrong and having to work with the story, having to go back and forth multiple times, all the things that you have to do to get a story to a point where it's got a chance of performing to a level to make it worth the time put into it. It's like AI could make 100 videos and I can't even get one in the same time frame. Which, again, not a problem. If you know it's AI and you're happy with watching AI, that's great. But look at the comments on this video here. And a guy here, if you're watching this, you've got like a picture of Jesus in your thumbnail, and your name begins with A. Perhaps you're the guy who's an expat in South America. You're commenting on this video believing it's real and it's AI. Sorry, mate. 56 comments. I would just laugh it up. What an idiot. What an unfortunate story. It literally says in the description that it was made with AI. And you still don't know. I mean, that's the disconnect that we've got. That's the problem. It says it in the description that they use AI. They're not breaking any terms of service. They're not doing anything wrong in that sense. But this is presented as a story that people think is, a human story. Click on the description, click the more button, and if it says altered or synthetic content, you know it's AI and you know it's not real. That's basically it. Now, there are other channels. There's one channel that's exploded recently. Again, I'm not going to be naming it because, again, that's not what this video is for. But the profile image has an uncanny resemblance to mine, although it's not the same, but you can tell where the inspiration came from. Use an American accent for that one. And 100 comments on a video, 12,000 views. I mean, it just beggars belief. But this one, they don't even say it's AI. They're lying that it's not AI. But the best way to check it, and I will include a link. Now, this is a bit more technical to do, but 11 Labs, where people get the AI voice from, which is, as I've already said, very good quality. They have a link where you can upload audio, as long as it's less than 2 megabytes, and it will tell you with a certain degree of certainty if the audio in that video is an AI voice. I think it's 98, 99% certainty. I tried every single channel, tried my own channel. Yeah, my channel is not AI. These channels are. And that's something to do. So there'll be a link in the description. Now, I don't know how you're going to get that audio. There are ways, but I can't give that away. But you can get audio, break it down into less than 2 megabytes, about a minute long, and it will give you a clue if it's AI or not. Very accurately. Anyway, guys, this was a bit of a different video. As I said, don't forget, if you think you can get an AI story past me, I'm running this competition. You can win $500 as long as you keep within the rules and actually video yourself without any points that I can't see, just to prove you can do it. And I'm more than willing to step up to the plate and pay $500 if you can give me an AI story that sounds like a proper story. But I bet you can't. And it will be interesting to put that on the channel, because part of this channel, or part of what I'm hoping to do, is as time goes by, AI is getting better. That's undeniable. But I want to continue sharing stories the proper way. But I do know that eventually, I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, eventually AI will be good enough to do anything you want. And I want to sort of document that on the channel while we continue with what we're meant to be doing, which is proper stories. If you want to support the channel more, I am hoping to include exclusive stories on my new Patreon. And the reason behind this is it's getting to the point, because of AI stories, that sharing real stories is more difficult, because it gets to a point where the amount of time it takes doesn't add up to, the return because of all the AI stories. So if we can build a Patreon for people who are interested in proper stories, we can have exclusive videos on there, and then we can keep bringing stories to you guys where I don't have to work, 18 hours a day on multiple things, back and forth, all these things, just to try to keep up. The problem I was faced with last year was I was directly trying to compete with these AI channels, and nobody has been able to give me a story that is AI that doesn't sound like AI, at least yet. So if you can, bring it on and win yourself $500. Anyway, really appreciate you guys watching, and yeah, catch you in the next story. Got one coming soon. And don't forget March, going to be changing a few things. Going to be trying to take the channel to the next level where we're not solely reliant on the whims of YouTube. Because if you want proper stories, I can't give you proper stories all the time if we have to compete with AI. Because AI can write perfect stories even though they're complete nonsense. I think that's what the problem is. Anyway, cheers guys. Catch you in the next video.